What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another news video. Now it's the last Smackdown before Wrestlemania, so what can fans expect on the go-home edition of the blue brand? Let's hope it was just better than the red brand's edition. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at this week's edition of Smackdown, as well as the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know, including Vince giving up on 2 more superstars, Becky Lynch is going to be returning on night 1, Goldberg's plans for Wrestlemania, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now, as always, we won't recap the show, but just provide you with the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. As always, we start off with the good as number 1, Big E's promo. Big E has always been a great talker, with his promos being one of his key assets, but last night's promo wasn't good, it was great. Wow, Big E has been delivering in the ring, and last night's promo proved they're doing the right thing by pushing him as a single star. Does the big man have what it takes to main event? Well, it's too early to tell just yet, but last night's promo reminded fans of Big E's potential and that by next year, he could be main eventing WrestleMania. Number 2, Daniel Bryan fires up the start of Smackdown. Now, although we aren't a big fan of the WWE's policy of starting shows with promos week in and week out, it's hard to argue with the policy when you get promos like Daniel Bryan's. The leader of the Yes Movement fired up the crowd, fired up the piped-in noise, with his passionate promo promising to bring the dangerous Daniel Bryan to the triple threat match against Reigns and Edge. Bryan's tale of how he's overcome adversity and said yes when everyone has told him no had to convince fans that while Bryan may be the underdog, he's going to do everything in his power to win the Universal Championship. Even fans who doubt Bryan's odds of securing the belt had to give him a second chance after hearing his spirited speech. Number 3, great tag match. Last night's Fatal 4 match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship was the kind of action-packed and exciting match that could have easily gone on WrestleMania. In fact, they missed out on an excellent opportunity to not have this on the kickoff show. The Alpha Academy of Otis and Chad Gable has quickly developed into a strong team, while the Street Profits continue to grow in and out of the ring. Ray and Dominic are a fun family team as their styles blend, and the team boasts the legacy of 2 generations of Mysterios. As for Ziggler and Rude, the two have worked superbly well ever since they threw them together on Raw. They've made the right decision having their champions retain, as the WWE needs to build them up as strong champions for when another team finally dethrones them. If only Raw had anything close to as good as a tag division as SmackDown. Number 4, Jey Uso wins the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And make no mistake about it, no one is going to remember Jey Uso winning this year's Battle Royal any more than anyone can likely name any previous winners. In fact, when I was watching SmackDown, I'd forgotten that Baron Corbin actually won it years ago until the announcers mentioned it. Nonetheless, having Jey win was the right choice, as it was a good way to give him a much needed win after weeks of being Daniel Bryan's go-to job guy. In fact, this is his first win in a long time. But more importantly, it set the stage for our next good segment. As number 5, Roman steals his spotlight. The WWE pulled off some cleverly subtle booking last night when Roman Reigns came out while Jey Uso was basking in glory of his win. On the surface, the tribal chief was there to congratulate his cousin, but a closer look suggests that Reigns denied Uso of his chance to celebrate on his own win. I don't make anything of this for now, but when Jey rebels against Roman down the road, you can be certain this clip will be included in the hype video showing the collapse of the Reigns regime. Number 6, talking fans into the building. In some ways, last night's SmackDown served as a pre-show for night 1 of WrestleMania, as it featured 2 good matches but focused more on powerful promos designed to get fans to tune into the show. Few fans would deny that Edge, Daniel Bryan and Reigns have been lighting things up with their work on the stick, as all 3 have made their cases for what they want to retain the Universal Championship and why they're gonna win. SmackDown has featured enough physical confrontations between all 3 over the last few weeks, and it was good pacing to slow things down with promos right before the big show. While the main event hype overshadowed the undercard matches, as it should, the WWE also built up things nicely for Belair vs Banks, Owens vs Zayn, and Rollins vs Cesaro. The video contrasting Seth's WrestleMania wins with Cesaro's shortcoming at the Showcase of the Immortals was a nice twist on hyping the match, especially when the video ended with a paid for by the friends of Seth Rollins message. But that was the good, or what about the bad? Is number 1, Tamina vs Nia Jax. If the WWE wanted to give fans an example of a throwaway match, Tamina vs Jax did the trick. If WWE wanted to highlight the lack of effort in booking in its women's tag team division, well, this was it. props to Tamina, she still has a powerful style in the ring, but the only thing missing from this match was Tony Schiavone from a 2000 edition of Nitro hyping this as the greatest night in the history of our sport, as two titans clash. Simply put, this was a match that no one wanted to see, and which did nothing to generate interest in the women's tag team turmoil match. In fact, the only thing they got was a brawl backstage. Surprised they even put that in. Now, there was nothing downright ugly about this week's Smackdown, unlike this week's Raw, which had two ugly segments, and that's what you should get going into the biggest show of the year. Last night's Smackdown wasn't the best go-home show by a mile, but it did a much better job than Raw in hyping this year's show of shows. Although we're a little bit puzzled as to why they hyped the video for The Fiend vs Randy Orton on Smackdown rather than Raw. Anyway, what did you guys think of Smackdown? Let us know in the comments down below. Now let's move on to the news. Our first story looks at the WWE leaking The Fiend's entrance. And the WWE may have leaked The Fiend's entrance for his match against Orton, as some photos turned up on Twitter suggesting that WWE is going to use drones not only for The Fiend's entrance, but for another big match. According to a report from 411 Mania, based on the photos, it appears WWE plans to use flying drones in formation to create messages for The Fiend for his grand entrance at the event. Additionally, it looks like they'll be using the drones for Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair later tonight. As reported earlier this week, the current plans are for The Fiend to square off against Randy Orton in a regular match, with The Fiend squashing the Viper. Now hopefully the WWE will change things up to avoid the match entrance overshadowing the match itself. Next up, Becky Lynch teases a Wrestlemania return. Now that WWE President Nick Khan has said Becky Lynch's return is imminent, fans are wondering if the man might actually show up at Mania. You may recall the wild rumor in our previous news videos that suggested Bayley could host a talk segment at the Showcase of the Immortals, with Lynch making a surprise appearance. Now fans are talking about a return ever since Lynch tweeted a picture of herself training along with the following message: "Nothing is guaranteed here tonight, only now eternally." Now if you look at the first letter of each line, it spells out night one. So is she turning up to night one of WrestleMania, or is she just teasing us like she did at the Royal Rumble? Next up, the WWE's original WrestleMania plans for Goldberg. Now Bill Goldberg may only wrestle twice a year for the WWE, but he usually makes high profile appearances, as seen last year when he defended the Universal Championship against Braun Strowman. Goldberg isn't wrestling this year at WrestleMania, but that wasn't always the case. According to a story from Fightful Select, Goldberg was briefly discussed for a WrestleMania match earlier this year, and the program with Drew McIntyre was even mentioned for the show. However, he wasn't figured into the plans creatively by February. He has another match this year on his contract. As fans know, Goldberg challenged Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble, with him defeating him. Do you think the WWE should have saved the match for Mania? Let us know in the comments down below. And finally, two more wrestlers added to Mr. McMahon's CBA list. It looks like Mr. McMahon has given up on two more superstars, but based on their recent burial, you likely wouldn't be surprised by their names: Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. Rumor has it that Vinnie Mac has given up on both superstars, despite MVP and Bobby Lashley asking McMahon to keep the Hurt Business together. Barring a sharp change to their booking, don't be surprised to see both wrestlers struggling to find work on Main Event. But there you have it guys, the good, the bad and the downright ugly for this week's Smackdown, as well as the wildest wrestling news stories. Are you guys hyped for Mania? Let us know in the comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.